Welcome back to the latest edition of The Blend. My name is Steve Benz. We are broadcasting live in downtown Chicago. Today, we have, let's face it, he's got the face for television now. He is in his third season. The TV show is called Toymakerz. He makes some of the coolest cars I've ever seen in my life. Let's welcome David Ankin to the show. Dave, welcome aboard.
How are you, sir? How are things going up there up north?
It's going pretty good. It's been nice, then it's cold, then it's nice. It's typical Midwest weather.
You know what? I moved away from all that down here, and I'm having the same thing. It's bad. All year it's been that way. It's 70 one day, rainy and cold the next. So.
Right. It's 71, and then it's 67. You. I hate that.
Except ours is like 30.
Oh, my goodness.
30, then 70. 30, then 70.
Oh, my goodness. Now, I started out, you were a stuntman. You'd done a lot of other things. Now, let's face it. You got approached because you look like a model. Is that how you got the show?
If that was only the truth, as I look great in the dark from a distance, Other than that, I don't think it has anything to do with my looks, that's for sure.
So tell me, third season, you went big, my friend. Big, big, big. Tell me about what's going on in season 3.
Season 3, we've been very fortunate. First couple of years were fantastic, but season 3, we brought in Richard Petty, did a build, a clone car with him for a truly a super fan. I mean, a couple of generations super fan. Brought in Sarah Edwards, the 300-mile-an-hour jet girl. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fantastic. And then a good friend of mine, Dean Cain, that played Superman, is rounding up the season finale episode with us. And the cars, that's just the celebrities. The cars are like nothing I've ever seen. The season finale car I built specifically to give rides to the fans, and it's an animal to say the least.
So how do you come up with these designs? Do you just, like a musician, you just wake up one morning and say, I envision we're going to do this to a car?
Honestly, as a kid, which I never did grow up, but as a kid, you have your Hot Wheels, your Matchbox, your so on and so forth, and a lot of stuff you play with, and always said, man, if I could drive that car one day, and the downfall is most of the time, them cars aren't really achievable fundamentally. Mm-hmm. So I've stewed on it my whole life, and then now I've just realized with our background and the team I have, I can bring those to life. So it'd say, look, take this part of this Matchbox or this model or this Hot Wheels car and mix it with this one, and you have a ride of a lifetime. And that's really where my head goes, figuring out how to make it fundamentally right and truly functioning car. So it's fun.
All right, so we'll talk about Richard and Dean in a few minutes, but let's go back in time, my friend. You're a teenager. How cool were you?
You know what? Honestly, I was your typical redhead with freckles. It's funny. I don't know where the freckles went to, and I don't know where the red hair went. I think it turned gray. But I wasn't, that kid. I mean, I loved sports, loved motorized sports, bikes and bicycles and go-karts and all the above. My dad was a big gearhead, could build anything on the planet. I don't think I was cool by any means. I think, honestly, I was, we just fit in. To me, everything was, we had our group of friends, and I don't know if there was a cool kid in our group. I think we were all sort of in the same level, if that makes sense. I'm sure there was cool kids in the school, but we thought we ruled the roost. So
right. So do you think your passion came from your dad? Do you think that's where that came from?
It really did. Yeah, absolutely. My grandfather worked for Packard and Studebaker, and my dad was a huge gearhead. I mean, he loved hot rods and was always, I tell everybody, for me, I always wanted that poster on the wall. And for me, my poster happened to be Farrah Fawcett with that, Lamborghini Countach. I wanted the Countach and I wanted Farrah Fawcett. So as I grew older, couldn't afford to buy it. I had to figure out how to build the car to land my Farrah Fawcett, if that makes sense.
That's how it always was when we were kids. It was, I can't have her, so I'll have that one. I'll have the car.
Yeah, you have the car. Well, if you had the car, my mind believed if I had the car, I could land the girl.
See, that's still true. That is still true, my friend.
It's still true today, I promise.
I mean, let's face it. As I drove around in my Chevette, and I should bring that over to you and then go, what would you do to that?
Listen, you're going to laugh. I've done a few. big blocks, small blocks. I said this to my 13-year-old the other day. I don't care what it is, from an AMC Pacer to a Gremlin to a. That over the years, I'm an old man now. I've done it all, and I can see cool in anything. I don't care what it is. If you look at it right, with the right wheel combination, the right stance, a whole bunch of horsepower. Horsepower makes a car cool.
Yep.
I mean, you can make something cool, and I've seen a bunch of big blocks in Chevettes. They're a handful to drive, but let me tell you something. When they're done, they're animals. So
look, my Chevette, I had a keychain that said vet. So when I put that on the table, the ladies came around. Now, let's face it, we just dated ourselves. I knew Gremlin, AMC Sport, all that stuff. Chevette, you and I, we all know what that is.
Absolutely. The kids today don't know what cool is. The 60s, 70s really had some great iconic, early 70s anyway, and the 60s really had some great iconic, muscle cars. And of course, I love that because I grew up around, my grandfather and my father, which, I have a 41 Ford now that's really
sweet.
nice. This season I did a 41 Willys Coupe. Those are, to me, because of my father, are truly iconic hot rods. But for me, it was the late 60s, early 70s were my muscle cars. So.
Yep. See, my dad and my brother love cars. My dad rebuilt a 36 Ford Coupe into a hot rod. That was like the coolest thing ever I'd ever seen, to see that come to life from some beater shell to what he did with it.
That is the glory of what we do, to take something that rolls in that most people drive by and it's growing up with weeds over it in their field, don't see what we see. This year, we did a 56 International, and it was just in a field, weeds growing over it. And I drove by it for 2 years. Finally, it just kept calling to me. It needed to be my shop truck. And it's sexy. It's downright sexy.
Now, let's put aside the TV show, because that's where you're really cool every week. What about running the shop? What is that like? Who else helps you run the shop? There's got to be a lot of people that help you.
No, there really isn't. A lot of TV shows and shops have them people. Tons and tons of people, and the cast is really just a cast. That's not my shop. In the shop, there's 4 guys and 1 girl that work in the shop. I get a business partner that is beyond amazing when it comes to business and finance, and he comes in, once a week or so. But without him, I wouldn't have the business side. Because let's face it, I'm great with a car, and business is a whole nother animal.
Yep.
And then honestly, that's the shop. We got 1 girl to handle all of the books, and then the film crew's the big thing for us. Editing department's got a whole bunch of guys. The film has got a whole bunch of guys. So by the time, 5 months a year, I've got 30 people in the shop and, 25 people outside the shop, not to mention your social media team, your branding teams, your publicist, your manager. I mean, it's ridiculous. So the shop itself is the easy part of what I do.
Sure.
But it's a family. We're tight-knitched. I'm standing right here in the middle of my shop watching as they're working as we speak, and you're pointing at things as we're doing the interview even. We're a very, very small team of very talented people. Everybody in my shop is truly amazing at what they do.
So what type of boss are you? Are you the nitpicker? Are you the let's come together Jesus and get this done? What type of person are you?
A little bit of a freak in nature, I think. I think I like to be really organized. I think everybody in my shop, if the toilet's plugged, I don't care if it's Ashley, my assistant, or Bo, the welder, or myself. You go in and fix it. If the plunger needs to be changed, you change it.
Sure.
We all do everything in this shop. At the same time, I always tell everybody there's no right or wrong, because let's face it, my season finale car we built from the ground up. You don't buy any parts. We build the body, the chassis, the windows, the seats, the pedals, every inch of the car, the wheels. We don't buy it. We make it. So there's no book that tells me how to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no right or wrong. But I love it when I tell my guys there's no right or wrong. They say, you're right, but there's Dave's way.
Right.
You know, and I think honestly my mind says is we talk it through. I trust if Jason tells me that it has to be this, I trust Jason's opinion. We talk it through, and that's what we do. Bo's my welder. If I say I want to do it this way, he goes, it ain't going to hold. I don't argue with him. That's what he does
Sure.
for a living.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's, you know, I trust him to do what he does. If I'm talking to a brand with a motor and I want 1,500 horsepower, I don't argue with him that that's what we're going to do. That's what we do, because you got to trust the people in your toolbox. Otherwise, what do you have? I try to put the best team of people I can put together to build anything I want to build and make all of our dreams come true.
Sure. Now, has there been a car that you wish you could redo that just didn't turn out, and now sometime later you're like, man, I wish I could just tweak that or this, and I think it would have been everything that I really wanted?
Every car I build. And let me explain that. Our skill set gets better every single day. We learn every single day. What I've learned is not to redo it. You do it on the next build. And I think if I ever stop learning, or the team ever stops learning, we're gonna change careers. We're set up around, you know, where there's never a right and wrong way to do anything. So when you do something and you figure it out, you go, when you're done, you go, man, if I would have done it like this, it would have been easier,
Sure.
would have been a little cleaner, would have been a little tighter, whatever the case may be. But I think it's a learning curve every day in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm looking right now and watching two of my guys work, and I promise you they're doing one side. The next side will go easier in what they're doing, just because they're learning as they're doing it.
Right. Right.
What am I talking about? They're on the second side.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't think I've listened to any of my interviews and call-ins, you know, for 30 years. That it's like, why? I can't make it change. It's already out there.
That's the same exact thing. I could, if I build a $150,000 car that I got 18 months in, you know, you're right. I could go in and change it.
Right.
But why?
Right.
I mean, it's badass. It's
Yeah.
right. It's everything about it is it really is next level on so many, you know, avenues. But the next car you build, you gotta talk it through. You know, interviews. I'm no good with interviews. I'm no good on TV. I really can't stand to watch myself on TV. But I'll tell you, every time I do one, I get a little more comfortable,
Sure.
a little better at it.
Sure.
Can't change what I did. We're going to go on to the next one.
Right. So tell me about Richard Petty and Dean Cain, their appearance on the show.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I mad respect for both people. And, you know, as a kid growing up, I was a Dale Earnhardt fan. Everybody had their fans.
Sure.
Right. Or their racers. Richard Petty happens to be down the street. Had a friend of mine that is truly a Richard Petty fan. His dad was a Lee Petty fan. Went to all the races for years and years and years and never got to meet the man. Well, Richard Petty's down the street from me. So the guy wanted me to build him a car. And the guy truly didn't know. I said, well, I'll go down and ask Richard if he would allow me to deliver the car there and have Richard hand him the keys. You know, didn't know what would happen, honestly. Richard was very gracious. And Richard's brand is bigger now than it's ever been. He's got Petty's Garage, and they're doing all these, you know, 2017, 18, 19 brand new off-the-showroom cars, Petty packages, and they're amazing on every level. So really got to work with Petty's Garage and doing a car and seeing what they do, and meet a man that's in his 80s that is, I mean, they call him the king for a reason.
Yep.
He is the king of what he does. And you never know it to talk to him. He's humble. He's very passionate about what he does. He lives in his world even to this day in his 80s. That's saying something about a man that doesn't have to, if that makes any sense. I mean, he loves what he does, and he's good at what he does. And takes the time to shake everybody's hand to do the right thing. I mean, a lot of guys don't see that, or they're above that.
Just think, if he was a driver in today's age, how big he would really be.
The downfall is I almost disagree. Racing's changing.
Mm-hmm.
People like us, we're slowly dying off, and the youth of today, their mindset is different. I think he would still be huge. I think he would have took a different path. I think racing is changing, and I think it's people like us that really have to go in and, engage the youth and make a difference with the youth and get them interested, not of their phones and their computers. I work with kids all the time, and, their sports heroes are different than they were when I was a kid, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, because they don't have any.
That's exactly it.
It's just too bad. It's just too bad.
My son's 13, doesn't know what a TV is.
Well,
he just doesn't know what a TV is.
Sure.
And that's absurd to me. It's like...
It is what technology has done to us. And, I guess we were probably the first generation with the early computers and stuff that really could do nothing compared to what an app can do today.
No, you're exactly right. I remember when the first, I remember when we got our first, we had 3 channels, and it went off at 11 o'clock at night. I remember the beeper. I remember an 8-track tape player, a cassette player, a DVD. I remember getting a beeper going, I'll never carry that. You'll be able to find me whenever you want. I don't like that. Yep. Nowadays, you can't live without a phone. So, but, at the same time, what that's done for my industry is amazing.
Sure.
Used to be a big block with 500 horse was a big deal. Now you can get that out of a 6-cylinder. I mean, without even trying. Yeah. It's just amazing to me where the technology's gone.
Yeah, there's always a plus and a minus no matter what we do. Now, Dean Cain. Tell me about Dean Cain's appearance.
Listen, a lot of people don't know this. Way back in the day, probably they've been asking me to do television for a long time. I said, no, I could have cared less. I'm not into this for the fame. I got pitched with Dean Cain to do a show together. We were going to be co-hosts with each other.
Sure.
And, of course, it didn't happen. A lot of things you get talked about never happened. But we stayed friends. Dean is a great, great guy. He's... I know him well enough to know he's outspoken. He says what he feels, which I admire. And he's a great father. And you know what? I met him at a time when he didn't need to give me the time of day. He did. We became friends. Now he's on my TV show. It's like, wow. That's awesome to me. It's like, wow. Even he, what are the chances of that? Growing up, I used to watch him on TV as Superman.
Sure.
Now he's on my TV show. And I coincidentally played Batman as a stunt guy. So we always used to joke he was Superman and I was Batman. So, but, he's just a great guy. Probably going to try to do a car for him this next year.
Awesome.
Just because he wants to get into some of this celebrity racing. And I want to be the guy to put him in the front of the pack. So.
Dave, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Everybody, you got to check out Season 3. The show is called Toymakerz. That's with a Z. Follow him on social media because Dave hates social media. No, I'm just kidding. Tweet out to him. Dave, always a pleasure. You and I need to get together and maybe put a car together for me.
Please, whatever you need, just reach out anytime and look forward to it.
Thanks. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Catch Toymakerz on the History Channel and on FYI. Check your local listings because Lord knows it's probably on a dozen times during the week. My name is Steve Benz. Thanks for tuning in to The Blend.